So maybe we can start now. So, hello everyone, thank you very much for being here. And first of all, I would like to say thank you so much to Natalie for having us. And of course to all RU team, Lulu, thank you so much. Mariko as well, thank you. And all RU team, interns, because all the team has been incredible during our residency, because also, like Natalie said before, both Elisa and I started our residency here exactly 1 year ago.
Yeah, so
from February 2023 until August 2023 for 6 months. And during that time, we have been able to develop our projects. So, my name is Gabriele Grones. I am an Italian artist, but I'm now based in Brooklyn. And I'm a painter, and my work always starts with a research in art history and iconology. I study the symbols and their use in artistic traditions across various cultures, conducting interdisciplinary studies including botany and anthropology. And in this case, I'm showing you some of my latest projects. Started during my artist residency here at Residency Unlimited, focusing on the 4 sacred plants to Native Americans: cedar, sage, sweetgrass, and tobacco. My paintings are all in oil on canvas and represent objects and artifacts related to these sacred plants, exploring the diffusion and the significance of common iconographies in different cultures. The paintings are then installed in articulated polyptychs that you can see here that create sort of maps of connections between the images, also evoking a cultural richness and some symbolic trajectories that link the works. I'm here presenting 2 completed polyptychs dedicated to cedar and tobacco, along with some other paintings that will compose the upcoming polyptychs dedicated to sage and sweetgrass. This first polyptych dedicated to cedar is now on view, like Natalie said before, at Sarah Crown Gallery in Tribeca until March 2nd, and is part of my solo show entitled Sacred Connections. This is dedicated to cedar, as I said, and the word cedar derives from ancient Greek kedros, which originally identified species of plants that are now classified in the genera Cedrus and Junipers. And as a botanical clarification, Western red cedar, which features in ceremonies in the Pacific Northwest especially, belongs to the cypress family. And Western red cedar is considered a sacred plant by many Native American communities, and it is used by numerous tribes as an incense and purifying herb. But cedar wood is widely used to create artifacts and ceremonial objects like the masks and the headdress that open the installation and that you can see here. These 6 paintings feature traditional masks from the Pacific coast. And these paintings have also been exhibited last September at RU House on Governor's Island in a duo show with Peter de Pelchin, a Belgian artist who was also in residency here at Residency Unlimited. And not only masks are traditionally carved in cedar wood, but also a wide range of other ritual objects like rattles, like the image on the bottom left of this slide. Most often associated with shamanic practices on the Northwest coast, they were used in dance rituals especially. Cedar is also an intensely fragrant plant due to the presence of aromatic substances in the resin, and the image on top left shows a basket from the New Kingdom period in Egypt collecting some pieces of cedar wood used for embalming. The sepulchral aspect returns in the Noli me tangere, the image on top right. Noli me tangere means touch me not. It is an episode from the Christian Gospels, and it is the Latin version of the phrase spoken by Jesus to Mary Magdalene when she recognized him after his resurrection. And this episode comes from a fresco by Beato Angelico, the Renaissance painter, from the convent of San Marco in Florence. And it is interesting because in the background you can see 4 trees, and each one has a specific symbolism in Christian tradition. An ancient legend also says that the cross of Christ was made from these trees. So the cypress, a symbol of mourning but also of immortality, the palm, symbol of martyrdom but also of victory and glory, the olive tree, symbol of peace, and lastly but not least, the cedar, symbol of mercy and immortality. The image above represents a cedar of Lebanon on Mount Lebanon. It refers to one of the earliest surviving photographs of the non-Western civilizations, taken by the photographer Ernest Banneke in 1850, documenting Middle Eastern cultures. The cedar tree were introduced to Europe in the 16th century, mainly as ornamental plants, but cedar was widely used as traded in all Mediterranean by Phoenicians, at least since 4500 BC. And the cedar wood panel with cusped arches from the 14th century is a particular example of Marinid architecture, and it is the image on top right of the slide. And this particular kind of style influenced the art in south of Spain. And in both traditions, carved wooden friezes constituted an important part of interior decoration. And the last image here represents a Japanese cedar panel for a sliding door from the Edo period, depicting elite courtesans in richly decorated dress reading a scroll. So these are 2 examples of the use of cedar in construction and in architectural elements. And these 3 images here represent some legends connected with cedar. And it is believed that cedar was extensively used in the construction of the great palaces of antiquity. In the Bible, the cedar of Lebanon is mentioned several times to symbolize nobility, royalty, and strength. After incense, it is the most frequently mentioned tree in the Old Testament, and it is also believed that Minos labyrinth in the place of Knossos in Crete was built with cedar wood. The painting representing a Minotaur comes from an Attic Kylix from 515 BC, and it refers to the maze and its construction material. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was a giant seated figure about 12.4 meter tall, made by Greek sculptor Phidias around 435 BC. And the statue was a chryselephantine sculpture, which means that it was made of ivory and gold. Zeus sat on a painted cedarwood throne, and here too cedar was used for its material qualities but also for its symbolic value as a noble plant. The statue was destroyed before the end of the 5th century AD, with conflicting accounts on the date and circumstances, but details of its form are known only from ancient Greek descriptions and representations, such as in the coin depicted here and coming from the National Museum of Archaeology in Florence. According to the Old Testament, the Temple of King Solomon in Jerusalem was built with cedars of Lebanon. The 3rd image on the bottom right depicts the Judgment of Solomon, a sculpture attributed either to Niccolò di Pietro Lamberti or to Nanni di Bartolo from the early 15th century, and it stands at the corner of the Doge's Palace in Venice. The use of cedar wood in creating sacred sculptures is here documented by a Japanese Zhao Gongen on the top left side, a protective Japanese deity in the Buddhist pantheon. This figure is carved of a single block of Japanese cedar called suji, except for its separately carved limbs. The Baroque sculpture of Saint John the Baptist on top right by Juan Martínez Montañez is carved in Spanish cedar. The artist is one of the greatest Spanish sculptors of the first half of the 17th century. Based in Sevilla, he carved numerous wooden statues and reliefs that were painted and integrated into large altar screens for churches in his native region and also to be shipped to the Americas. And we can find his sculptures now from Mexico to Peru. The third example of cedar wood carved artifact is a shabti on bottom right of the slide. It is a figure used in ancient Egyptian funerary practices and originally placed in tombs among the grave goods. The work here represents one of the shabti of Yuya found in the burial in the Valley of the Kings. The shabti were intended to act as servants for the deceased in the afterlife. The last image of the polyptych on the bottom left represents a funerary mask from the Fayum portraits, a naturalistic painted portrait in encaustic on a cedar of Lebanon panel applied on upper-class mummies from the 3rd century Egypt, when the area was under the Roman Empire. The Fayum portraits are the only large body of art, especially painting, from classical period. The following paintings do not belong to a specific polyptych, but are single paintings that are gonna be part of upcoming polyptychs. And these two works are dedicated to the plant of sage. The plant's name seems to derive from the Latin word salvus, meaning healthy, due to the plant's medical properties. The first painting on top of the slide refers to the episode of the flight into Egypt from the Pisa pulpit by Giovanni Pisano from 1302. According to a Christian legend, Mary asked some plants to protect and hide baby Jesus from Herod's soldiers, but only sage agreed to cover the child with its leaves and save him from death. So that's the legend behind the name. The second painting at the bottom represents a mortar by German goldsmith Wenzel Jamnitzer from 1550. It is decorated with sculptural ornaments, including the life casts of sage leaves. Sweetgrass is one of the most representative herbs in Native American cultures, but similar species of herbs are also present in many other traditions. Some of the oldest depictions of grass come from fragments of Minoan vases from the 16th century BC, like the image at the bottom right of the slide. The use of long blades of grass for the creation of ritual objects is diffused throughout the Americas and is here depicted in two paintings of feathered headdresses from the Amazon region, where the braided grass forms the inner frame. You can see some details of the grass in between the feathers, like here or over here. These last three paintings on show at Sauerkraut Gallery are dedicated to tobacco and are related to the large polyptych that I will present next. The first image comes from a photograph by Karl Kleingrothe, who focused on agricultural subjects in the late 19th century Asia. documenting the trade and the spread of plants, due in part to the cultural influence of colonial empires such as the Spanish Empire, with ramifications from the Americas to Southeastern Asia. The last two paintings show 18th century Chinese snuff bottles, examples of the rich variety of such subjects from the Metropolitan Museum collections. And many of the objects that you have seen in this presentation belong to the Metropolitan Museum collections.
Gabriele, I just want to specify that your works are very small.
Yes, okay.
They're really tiny works, so it's not so apparent.
Yes, also the size, yeah.
Like that, but they're incredibly detailed and they're really tiny, tiny works.
Yes, they are.
Which is amazing. Some of them are, like miniatures almost.
Thank you. Yes, the paintings are all in oil on canvas, and the size of the smallest paintings on the top left of this slide, for example, are 4 by 4 inches each, and so the biggest one, this here on the top right corner, is probably 6 by 12 inches. So that's the largest painting in this installation, for example. So yes, just to give you an idea of the dimensions and the size. And the entire installation is 30 by 54 inches. So in centimeters, it's 76 by 137 centimeters. So yes, this is the completed polyptych dedicated to tobacco. And it has recently been exhibited at the art fair Zona Maco in Mexico City at Bocanera Gallery booth. It works as a visual map of connections between artifacts related to the plant of tobacco, as I said. And some paintings from this polyptych have been on show at Sapar Gallery, at Urban Ecology, an exhibition curated by Hailey Ferber and organized by Residencies Unlimited, that took place in May 2023. The first image of this installation represents a detail of an illustration from the Historia General y Natural de las Indias, a book by Gonzalo Fernández de Oviedo y Valls, published for the first time in 1534, and it is the image on top right of the slide. The word tobacco is first found in this text, probably referring to a small Y-shaped tube traditionally used to inhale smoke from dried leaves. This term was later used to identify the plant itself. This painting stands as a starting point from which the other paintings branch off, showing different cultural and traditional uses associated with tobacco. The group of 4 works show some 18th century Chinese snuff bottles, like the images that you have seen recently. These bottles were used during the Qing dynasty in China to contain powdered tobacco. And smoking tobacco was illegal during Qing dynasty, and the use of snuff tobacco was allowed because they considered it to be a remedy for common illness. And these small bottles come from the Metropolitan Museum. This section of paintings focuses on the spread of the mythological, religious, and socio-cultural aspects of tobacco. In the first painting, top left, 2 men participate in a religious ritual during which they light up a cigarette to a statue of San Simón or Maximón, a holy figure characteristic of Guatemala. In an example of religious syncretism in which San Simón, not officially recognized by the Catholic Church though, is united with the local mythological figure of a Mayan deity of tobacco, depicted in the painting below, representing a 7th century Mayan plate with mythological scenes, where in the lower right part appears the torso of an upside-down figure of the god with tobacco leaves on his head. It's difficult to see from this image, but believe me, there is a little figures here. The painting of tobacco plants And the center top of the slide comes from an old photograph by German photographer called Kleingrote, like the image that you've seen before in a previous slide, documenting nature and the diffusion of plants in Asia. And the last one, on the top right corner, is an image of tobacco leaves that appear in the capitals of the columns in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. The architects Benjamin Henry Latrobe and Thomas Ustick Walter intended to use a Native American plant along with traditional acanthus leaves, in this case, to modify and evolve the classical Corinthian order. The central section of the installation starts on top with two images of collectible cards sold along with cigarettes in the early 20th century, representing famous characters like popular actors or presidents of the United States. These images relate to pop culture in the early days of tobacco mass diffusion and early marketing strategies. Below these images, an 18th century allegorical illustration of the American continent by Flemish artist Gottfried Mies depicts two figures and animals. In particular, a crouching figure smokes tobacco with a pipe as a sign of the popularity of this plant in Europe. And again, the image is very little, but the figure is here. Next to this, an 1890 patent shows the design of a modern pipe registered in the United States by George Eastman. And the painting appears in dialogue with a traditional southern German pipe made from a deformed deer horn. And this particular artifact was most likely made for a cabinet of wonders in German Wunderkammer, a room where such objects were collected for the pleasure of curiosity. The last group of painting in this installation focuses on tobacco containers, such as boxes and bags, starting from top left with a small 18th century porcelain box from southern Italy and a northern Cheyenne tobacco bag with pipe case from 1870. The central row of this section features two richly decorated Rococo tobacco boxes on either side. The painting on the left represents an exquisite snuff box from French goldsmith Daniel Gauvers, while the thoroughly chiseled snuff box on the right depicts the Roman hero Gaio Muzio Scaevola before the Etruscan king Lars Porsena, made by George Michael Moser, a very talented British goldsmith from the 18th century. The central painting depicts an elegant Art Deco cigarette case by Pierre Legrain. The last image of the polyptych represents a finely chiseled Japanese lacquered pouch for storing tobacco, which ideally closes the installation. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, we can go on with Elisa's presentation, and then in the end, we can come back.
So I want to join Gabriele in thanking RU, Natalie, and the RU team for this year, actually, not just today. They've been really amazing, and it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you so much also to you guys who came today. I'm going to try to briefly, as possible, illustrate the project that I presented for RU as my submission and how I developed it during this during this year, because my project didn't finish with the residency. It's divided into different parts, and one part was finished recently. That's why also we wanted to present our researches here today, because it's like the real end of our projects. So the title is Breviario del mio amore, and it's an Italian title. Breviario is like a collection of, let's say, poems connected with religion and spirituality. And the rest of the sentence is like, so breviary basically. The rest of the sentence is of my love. And it's the title of a little book, let's call it book, it's a narration more than a book, that I made during the residency and that I finished in the last months. I'm gonna start with some images of my work before the residency, just to give you an idea of my research that's always been focused on experimentation on different materials. Here you can see paintings on canvas, aluminum here, copper and aluminum here, and paper. So like mainly my technique is painting, oil, but also using pastels, for example, on different materials. But I also do some installations or some sculptures, and I do have a ceramic studio. So techniques involved are many. And the topic of my research is focused on the concepts of symbol and threshold together. That's why in the past I've been painting children like swimming dressed, diving into nature or the empty space, because the dive is related to the concept of threshold and to the change of a status. But really recently, in the last 3-4 years, I've been starting to think to the threshold as more like the passage between life and death. So always a change of status, but a different one. And here you can see two very tiny paintings on aluminum, and the shapes that you barely see in the background are skulls. So the skull started to appear in my research in, let's say, 2019 actually. And this work here is a triptych actually. You're gonna see just two couples of paintings, and it's related to an exhibition that I saw at the Morgan Library about engravings by Holbein. They are so precious and small, and they speak about the dance of the death. That's a medieval topic in which a skeleton is dancing among rich people of high society. It's kind of a memento mori, right? And I decided to reinterpret this engraving, giving a different idea of the composition. So here are more paintings on paper with some drawings on marker, and then a mixed technique with oil, always representing some elements of nature connected with skulls. And these are the last two images are ceramics. So this is, let's call it a painting on ceramics with different glazes, and it's a black clay. And this one, it's barely visible in the picture, not projector's fault, it's the work that's difficult to be seen. And it's kind of a curtain of brambles, let's say. So it's black on black, always black clay. And they're pretty small, let's say 30 by 23 centimeters. I don't know if you are familiar with centimeters or inches. It's 12 by 9, more or less. And here we start with the idea of my project. That's completely different from my work. Like, I was here in 2019, and I went to visit the Brooklyn Museum, where I got caught by some epitaphs on ceramics that were made, let's say, I mean, there were many. Some of them belong to the 16th century, and they are epitaphs because, like, in Korean art, they started to engrave marble to celebrate the life of a person who deceased, and then they switched in order to have lighter materials and less expensive to clay, and so ceramics. And these are these beautiful tablets that basically were made to describe the life of important people from Korean society. In this case, we have a poet. Lately, we are going to see prime minister epitaphs. And they describe basically their life, and they are pretty long. So we have many tablets. And I found those very beautiful. I was in a period of my life in which I was facing a loss, and at the same time, I'm not religious. So, and then pandemic was coming. So I felt I actually didn't know how to mourn. So this work was really important to me. It was really interesting from an artistic point of view and a cultural point of view, and at the same time from a personal point of view. So I decided to, I believe this is the back of the panels that are kind of abstract, amazing paintings to me. So what I decided to do was to present a different project from my habitual research, that was to produce a group of paintings and a written text, and this body of works, different among them, was meant to reflect on the concept of loss and mourning, and how to process the loss and the mourning through the artistic process. So the paintings should have been like a continuum from the work that I was doing, that was very typical for my research. And the epitaph, the book that I would have written, was an epitaph, a long epitaph about the person that I lost in the past. What about the book? I'm going to speak about the book a little bit later, because it's the last part, but now we're going to see some of the paintings that I started doing here in the residency, during the residency. And this is the first one, and it's an oil on rose gold. So it's pretty small, like 6 by 4 inches. It's rose gold. It's a plate of rose gold, so it's not gold leaf. I was interested into the surface because it was reflecting a lot and engaging with the viewer, a dialogue, because the environment, the lights, the viewer itself mirrors on the surface. And at the same time, there's a kind of a myth connected with the iron worker. That is like from ancient time, the iron workers are seen as people that can kind of predict the future. And in Latin, the name of the little pieces that like spread out while the iron worker works the metals, the precious metals, the name of these pieces of precious metals is the same of the stars. So it's kind of a continuous, it's a cedar. So in Latin, cedar, siderurgia, is the science that study, or the technique that studies the precious materials and the working of precious materials. And cedars are also stars. It's kind of a connection between Earth and universe. So something that to me appeared as a continuum, and also like a spiritual connection in some ways. And that's also why I decided to engage this experimentation with a different material. And in fact, this work here is entitled Corpo Celeste, that means celestial body. And always the skull is a representation, like figurative representation. I don't use many figurative elements. I decide to put them into the work when it's needed, but when I decided to use the skull as a reference or as like an iconography element, I didn't want to describe the skull, but to evoke the idea of the skull. So at the first sight, I think the viewer has the impression of black stains on the surface, and then as you get closer, you have a better idea of what's represented in the painting, even though, as I said, it's very small. And this is another work, Human Act. It's connected with a South Korean writer, Han Kang. That's one of my favorite writers, and she wrote many books talking about the threshold between human and nature and transformation, death, and transformation of human body into plant. That's something connected with Latin mythology at the same time. So I find her narration very evocative and very inspiring to my work. So all my titles are kind of connected with literature or cinema, like Bertolucci, Leconte, many different movie makers or writers, Patricia Highsmith, Cornelius Cidi. Like, I love this interaction, invasion of different disciplines into my work, into art. This is another painting from the series called Corpo Celeste. As you can not see, there are some areas like this part here, and that's not painted, so it's very difficult to take pictures of some materials that reflect light. So yeah, it's not easy to understand, but it was interesting. That's why the exhibition that I had with these paintings has been called a dance, because the entire room was kind of transformed into a mirror room, and it was interesting to see how the viewers could perceive this interaction with the body of works. At the same time, the reference with the Dance of the Death, Holbein again, was very immediate, and I loved it. Here more works, always of this Corpo Celeste series, and this is the first shot of the exhibition. Me and my fellow artists in residence, we did at Sapar Contemporary. Was curated by Haley Thurber, and it was organized and promoted by RU. So it was a nice and very challenging experience, because it was the first time that I was showing the work that I was doing during the residency, and that I could see the works outside my studio. So I exhibited a couple of papers, and so the two paintings that you saw before, and this piece here is a marble painting. I don't know if you have experience of New York so far, if you have been, but whatever you need, New York provides basically for free. So sometimes I find materials in the street that are really interesting to me, and there was this piece of marble that reminded to me the idea of a heel, and then I decided it was a black marble, and I think it probably was something like garbage, a rest of piece of marble used to, I don't know if to build kitchens or graves, but it was interesting, and it was of the same size of the paintings. So I decided why not to experiment on that, and I painted some plants. The image is not completely clear, but there are some, here probably you're gonna see it better, some cactus. Because in that period I also had a trip to Mexico, and the importance of skulls and death in Mexican culture. That's amazing. And here there's another image of an exhibition we did at RU in this place. So it was Metamorphosis. And I decided to exhibit some ceramics that I made in my studio. And this is Alpha, and these two vases here are Omega. I made those works in collaboration with another artist at my studio, Grant Gustafsson. And I exhibited some of the new paintings that I was doing at the time, always in connection with this topic of death, mourning, threshold. And here comes an exhibition that I visited at the Rubian Museum. That's one of my favorite museums, and it was always in the same period, towards the end of the residency, and it was called Death is Not the End. And it was kind of super interesting to me because I'm Italian and my work has more connection points with Asian art rather than European art. And this exhibition was kind of presenting the two, I would say, cultures and not religions. The two cultures and how painters, artists, engravers, sculptors faced the topic of death according to each different vision. And it was really inspiring, beautiful, amazing exhibition. And it was really interesting to me because I got inspired by some of the works. And so some paintings were basically, so this is a detail of a bigger painting, and it's like ink on a fabric. I don't remember which type of fabric, I believe silk, but I'm not sure. And the colors are absolutely bright. These oranges are exploding, are so interesting and intriguing that I decided to introduce these colors in the next group of small works. And these are two of them. These have been exhibited at Sarah Crown Gallery. We work with the same gallery here in New York City. As you can see, some of the details here are inspired by details from Nepalese art. They are inspired. That means that I didn't copy some elements or like leaves or flowers. I just took inspiration because like in the previous paintings, like very, very tiny areas are drawn by a very refined drawing. And so these, for example, this couple of paintings has the color, some areas are not painted, so this part here reflects the light. It's rose gold, so the hue is very warm, even if it's not clearly pink. It's not pink, but it's very warm. And this is the only painting that doesn't have like, let's say, an empty space on the surface. So it's the only painting that it's completely covered with oil color. For the purpose, I used special mediums to treat the oil color. And as you can see here, there's just a hint of the skulls, and here they are more visible to me, more present. And then some of the greens from Nepalese art are coming through, and I believe they are very in dialogue, or I hope they are very in dialogue with those paintings. These paintings are all the same size, 6 by 4 inches. That means like 15-ish by 10-ish centimeters. And this is an installation view of the exhibition. The gallery is not big, it's pretty squared. So I decided to install all the paintings on one line. It was a decision to give uniformity and also like a rhythm to the show. And these two paintings, you can see some, you can barely see some signs, and those are engraved. So I used the engraving techniques, like dry point, on gold sheets in order to have, let's say, a narration, an element of narration that was not painted or drawn, because I was not interested into the illustrative effect of drawing on this material. It was a little bit risky to me. This is one of the last paintings from the same series, a dance. And it's kind of in dialogue with the first one that I showed you, the orange one, but it has some different elements. And it's a little bit more detailed. And for those who are new of the residency, you're going to experience that connections are really important during your staying here. For different aspects, but it's really inspiring to speak to curators or, I don't know, all the people, artists, all the people. And these images are like a couple of images that are very crucial for the developing of my book project. Because here during the Brooklyn Ray presentation, I met Mirene Arsenios. She is a writer, and she wrote a book that's called The Autobiography of a Language. And during the presentation of the Brooklyn Rail, we went with RU. I met her there because I didn't know her before. And this book speaks basically about being a foreigner and facing loss. So I wanted to meet her, and I met her here, and it was really a great experience because I could speak with her and many other curators about this book that I was writing. So while painting, I was also writing this little book. I'm calling it a book, even though the word is not really appropriated. It's the narration of the passing by of this person of my family. And I thought I had a clear idea of how the book should come out. So like a long description of the illness and death and anger, all the passages you go through. And while speaking with all different people, I changed so many versions of my project that it took me 1 year to complete it. It was really a collaboration, so it was very inspiring. And at the first time, I wanted it to be published, and then I changed my mind, because when you speak about something that's very personal, sometimes you want to hide at the same time. And so when I spoke to Mirene, I told her that I had decided to not publish the book, and she was disagreeing with that. And so I changed my project again, because she made me understand the importance of a writing project, and she made me basically understand also the process of mourning. That means also kind of overcoming some phases. I don't know, I'm kind of anticipating some elements. And I went also to a workshop at MoMA, where an amazing couple of artists, bookmakers, Black Mass from New York City. If you don't know them, maybe check them out, because they do a very interesting thing. Presented some artist books from the MoMA collection. I don't believe they are on view, but you can look for those, and they are super interesting. And this book here was made by Martin Purrier. I don't know if the pronunciation is correct. When I went to this workshop, I was really looking for ideas to how to give a shape to my book. So at that time I was kind of not sure if I should have given a physical shape, like an art object, or rather than that, like just to print it. And then I was attending this workshop and I saw these images. This is Richard Long, and this is another artist book preserved at MoMA, in the MoMA collection. And what I liked about these two works is the physicality of the object. Like, this is made of wood, and also the other one is made of wood plates. So the heaviness of both of them. So at this point, I decided to combine my artistic research and to unify the two projects. So I decided to engrave my book on gold sheets, gold plates, rose gold plates, and to have them binded in the shape of a book, to have them into an installation. So to fix them on a wood, on a piece of wood, painted, hanging on the wall, on the side. So it's not hanging straight, it's hanging on the side. The book in total has 12 pages, so it became a very condensed book. So that's why I said it's not really a book. And the title is Breviario del mio amore. So, like, breviary of my love. And I engraved the book I engraved every chapter. There are 3 different chapters in which the story and the process of making this book became healing and mourning itself. So what I didn't know, I didn't know how to mourn, and through this process, through the making of this project, I do believe that I went through the process without even knowing. And I still don't know what it means to mourn, but it was highlighting, for me, this project was highlighting aspects of my experience that I didn't consider at the beginning. So at the beginning there was the pain, the anger, the mess, disorientation. And while writing this book, I deleted so many pages and so many details because they were not necessary anymore. And the artistic project, facing this artistic journey, was kind of giving me the power to erase some part, not to erase, no, it's the wrong word, to put them in a corner and to give importance, to highlight different parts of this journey. That's why I kept only 12 pages of this book, because being an artist means, in general, means to select a lot, and to me, of course, it's not general, but for my opinion, it means to get to the point with the less is better, but the necessary, you have to put there the necessary. So working to this book for 1 year gave me the capacity to arrive to the focus, I think. So I haven't shown this yet. These are a couple of images, and this is just a rendering that I made of the installation. So there are 12 pages back and front, so there are 6 gold plates. These are 3 of them, and with few details. This is a very close up. So basically, the book is always 6x4. The size is given by some rules of jewelry, so it's another process. And I wanna just close my speech reading. If you want, like a tiny part of these pages. So the book is in Italian, and because that's my language, and I didn't want to write in a language that I don't know so well. It would have been not really true, but I translated just this few sentences into English. So it's not like a translation made by a professional translator. And I have to make a little preface in order to give you the context of this. We are at the point in which, let's say, the fictional character, that's how Mirene called the person that I lost. And I loved it because I am writing about someone, so it doesn't mean didn't existed, but it's anyway, it becomes public. It's a fictional character. So the fictional character passed away, and we are at the point in which the narrator, that's me, needs to tell his best friend what happened. Another preface, you're gonna listen to the word pittima. Pittima during the reading. Pittima is a bird. It's, I took a note, godwit in English. And it's famous because, so I didn't want to translate this word because it's very powerful in Italian. It has, it's a kind of a nickname given to some people that continuously lament something, that like always complain about something, but it's connected to the biological structure of this bird, because pittima is this bird that flies long distances. And they do like camels, basically. They eat a lot to face a long travel. And when they arrive in my native region, they are without food left in their body, so they are very skinny. And the only stop they do during their migration trip is in my region, in my little area. So they are kind of skinny and very victimistic attitude, we would say. They stop there for a long period. They eat a lot in order to leave again for the last part of their journey. So that's why pittima is given like a nickname to many people, and you're gonna listen to this name in the reading. It's pretty short. I have to tell Luigino. I want him to know that you're gone. I don't want him to be joined by the vulgar village rumors. Although, actually, this would be very difficult because Luigino has not left his house for more than 10 years so far. He did it for you twice in the last 6 days, and he came to see you before you're passing by. Luigino the pittima, silly, boring, gadfly, tiny voice. Luigino, tall and skinny, gnarled, yellow as a poplar bench. He has a pointed nose and gray curls on his head. I remember you two walking home in the slow pace of evening chatters. You in silence, smiling sideways. Him with his head down, complaining for some injustice or pontificating unquestionable truth. Read in the local chronicle, or perhaps eavesdropped at the bar of the village. Just like a Pittima, Luigino had to stop halfway through his migration journey, holding up 10 years in his shoddy nest, an old bed from the 70s, rotting a bit in the heat of muggy summers and darkening in the humid of frosty winters. Alone and in silence, with his brother drumming his temples, Pittima of River, he has been waiting for a really good reason to go out again. The reason was you. If it's true that death tore you away from me, you tore Luigino away from death. Love is not about kisses and cuddles. Love is for strong stomachs, brave lips, and friendly arms. That's it. I don't know if you have questions.
Yes, if you have questions, we're
Yeah.
happy to answer.
It's very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for
Thank you.
listening to us. It was really nice to give a kind of conclusion to our project here at RU, so we're really happy about that. Thank you for coming. Thank you.